Something tells me that due to the overabundance of impossible details soldered into this microchip-sized cartridge equating to the villain's credentials, essentially sealing everything together, Mercury Steam shares just about the exact same amount of power possessed by Ravenbeak when it comes to being far ahead with the plan. That's how it always felt to me each time I'm reminded on the 14-year-long development hell cycle Metroid Dread went through. Throughout the entire agonizing stretch on its life of torture being known as now former false mythology, Metroid Dread waited and waited and waited to be set free. Secrets revealed, the truth to come out, a lifelong dream to commit as becoming one of the greatest in history, held accountable entirely by the story of unknown revelation as the 5th installment. And at the very end of that day, it was definitely, without a doubt, 100% worth the time it was spent. With the help of Mercury Steam's artistic abilities and state-of-the-art design, Nintendo conjured up a phenomenal Metroid illustration that not only changed the series forever, well, supposedly in my opinion, but it ultimately finalized the panel of missing pieces. We received a clear picture on how everything came into place. That idea alone is like an entirely new feeling altogether that would catch the human mind completely off guard. I'm going to be honest on this one. I genuinely haven't the slightest iota on knowing where to possibly begin on describing how good Metroid Dread's story is. The first thing that I can acquire at the top of my head, apart from everything else, is the build-up. Legit. Holy fucking shit. How is this even possible? Just how? This is one little sinister aspect that I usually see as diverge in every other Metroid game. More often than not, it's more primarily set up for bosses or minor enemy encounters, both of which go in tandem for driving tension and suspense that simply ends not long after it begins. Examples including Parasite Queen's lockdown massacre in the frigate Orpheon, and the Phazon Metroid introduction in the farthest reaches of Skytown Elysia. The entire time, you are made aware of an unwelcoming presence seeping into the atmosphere like poison. And once the source settles in for a vile greeting, the cycle subsides and a new one awaits later. The point is, build-up in Metroid games are usually short, but effective. So what makes Metroid Dread any different exactly? It never ends. I'd call myself a fool on wishing that I was exaggerating. Not even for the slightest point of time. You are constantly being weighed down with buildup in unprecedented quantities, large enough to fracture bones. Every step that's taken in Metroid Dread is as true to its name. The whole idea behind a simple, iconic adventure on a planet that's normally provided in the series being completely ravaged and replaced by fusion scaled to 10,000 via sudden mission of survival, along with it being carried out immediately after what was meant to be a basic investigation wondering what the hell is going on, furthermore being lured down into what was originally going to be the end of Samus herself, is absolutely mind-blowing to start off the plot. It wasn't until being influenced by the question of this challenge that I came to realize on what the true source of Dread is in this game. At first, I was made to believe that it was the Emmy units, but then I realized that they were just nothing more but fuel to Dread's story. Same thing with the X-Parasites. It was a lot to think about at first, but now I'm confident to conclude that the true source of Dread in this game is objectively Ravenbeak himself. I'll gladly explain why. He may be the franchise's birthright for certain on one hand, but on the other hand that doesn't have the arm cannon to dictate the universe with, he is undoubtedly the main cause for Metroid Dread's entire creation. Likewise, he started the adventure by accident. Let me reiterate, as a fucking concept, Metroid Dread was never meant to happen. This game actually begins with Samus about to instantly meet her fate. Deja vu. And in a sudden spine-chilling twist before all seemed lost, build-up begins to develop, thus sparing the protagonist, ambiguous to what her palm was keeping. Ravenbeak, the source of dread, unintentionally created the story by giving build-up in the form of Samus's Metroid DNA reawakened by his presence, thus being led down the path of pure, malicious deception as a pawn for Ravenbeak's calamitous scheme for reviving a species of parasites from extinction. And probably the most absurd part about Metroid Dread's plot, Samus has literally no idea that she's being used. Every time she interacts with ZDR's planetary core network communication system, she thinks she is hearing Adam's CPU. But not until the very end when she arrives on Itarash. It all turned out to be a complete fabrication. From the beginning, as Ravenbeak was pretending to be the voice of Adam to successfully lure Samus straight into his trap, and doubling down to straight up calling her his daughter in such an arrogant manner to purposefully set her off, and therefore allow him to easily get his hands on the prize. Literally. And I seriously cannot reiterate this enough. Ravenbeak is so fucking intelligent and cunning that he is, by definition, the villain of the franchise that nearly won. Let that sink in for a moment. And if it wasn't for Samus's Metroid DNA saving and endangering her life simultaneously at the end of the adventure, it would have been the end of an era. To think. The central units, the Emmys, X-Parasite invasion, and the notion of being portrayed as a victim, only to result in reawakening what's begun. From the instructions, advice, and false guidance given to Samus by means to escape with her life as the only objective in mind for easy convincing, was all according to Ravenbeak's plan. Always keeping a watchful eye, witnessing the subtle details of her energy siphoning powers, fortifying it by releasing the X-Parasites from Elon to increase the buildup he desires to attain. Knowing that she will get through every obstacle that he throws at her, just to strengthen her genetics, as if he was training Samus to be a Metroid, an all-powerful bioweapon. It was all his doing. The original plan was death, but the new one was Metroid Project Dread, ending in a fatal flaw. Overconfidence. A story that gives new meaning to the beginning of the end. To say that I was satisfied would be an understatement. The plot of Metroid Dread is corrupted in the best ways I can imagine. I guess Ravenbeak was onto something after all by reiterating his catchphrase, because power definitely is everything in this game's plot. Period.